Nitin Garg from NBG Printographic Machinery visited the PrintWeek Studio. He elaborated on the company's success with rigid boxes, paper bags, and the foray into paper cups. Additionally, Garg focused on flexo press manufacturing in Faridabad and NBG strategies for Drupa.
So good morning, welcome Nitin. Thank you so much for flying down from Delhi, especially for this. I know you've been busy, Drupa around the corner, NBG doing hundreds of things. You've been wearing multiple hats, so extraordinarily busy time for you. Good to be busy.
No, thank you very much for doing this, and I'm glad to be here.
Sure, sure. I want to start off with a news item that we covered yesterday, which is in the rigid box section, which has got to do with the installation of a automated rigid box line at HBD.
Right.
So again, an interesting thing, because we've been tracking this industry for some time. The numbers have been kind of staggering. What is the importance of this particular line that has come in, because it's unique from a whole lot of other things, and then I have a subsequent question for you. Yeah.
See, the recent news that you're talking about, the machine which HBD has picked up, is a new development in the rigid box automatic space.
Sure.
So what this does is it allows any converter to install one machine and then produce a box which is made up of a top and a bottom.
Correct.
In one pass.
Yep.
Which was not the case traditionally.
Right.
Generally, a client would have to have two machines to produce a box where a top would be produced on one machine and the bottom on the other.
Sure.
But with this new development, converters can produce a complete box in one pass.
Sure, sure. So again, just to give us an understanding, because not many would be conversant with this, if we just date back, because I remember I seeing my first rigid box machine, as I mentioned to you, at in Hyderabad, at one of the leading converters. The industry's journey in rigid box has been sort of much changed. It was earlier semi-automatic. I remember 3 to 4 operators around a single machine.
Right.
I also remember the kind of technology transfer required for rigid box was not up to the level at which this line is. So again, if you can give us a sense of where we were and what is the journey we've traveled.
See, for rigid box especially, a lot has happened in this space, especially in the last 10 to 12 years.
Sure.
Because this industry earlier was sort of limited to gift boxes and other related items, or maybe confectionery or sweets. But with introduction of these rigid boxes to the mobile phone space, this industry has grown at a tremendous pace.
Sure.
So that is what has energized the growth in this industry, and that is where a lot of automation has happened. Because that required building up a lot of scale and efficiencies in a very short span of time.
Right.
Which was not the demand earlier.
Right. So again, if you can just give us a number, what is the kind of speeds we were looking at earlier, what we are looking at now, and what is the kind of turnaround we are seeing, especially with the super specialization with rigid box?
See, earlier, if we talk about automatic lines,
sure,
the speed, the average production speed used to be around, let's say, 20 to 22 pieces per minute.
Yep.
Which has now come up to anything from 40 to 50 pieces a minute.
Sure.
So it has almost doubled.
Yep. Yep, that's significant. And much less in terms of operator, manual intervention, lot more of machine intelligence, and lot more combinations possible. Is that also modified a lot?
Sure. I mean, there's a lot of development that has taken place in that domain as well.
Sure.
Where a lot of automation has come in.
Sure.
Earlier, the changeover time on an automatic machine could be anything from 2 to 4 hours. So, which was a limiting factor when planning to run shorter runs.
Yep.
And things like that.
Sure.
So, a lot of automation has come in. Now, in certain models, the changeover time has been reduced to almost 15 to 20 minutes.
Right.
So that gives an advantage where clients or the converters can print, plan for shorter runs on an automatic machine.
Right, right. Makes sense. Again, some of our data which we are looking at 24, and again, this is smartphones who have, again, we were discussing this, that companies like Samsung, Xiaomi, Vivo, etc., that we are seeing they have utilized the rigid box in a very clever sort of way for their smartphone devices, especially the unboxing experience. But what you were pointing out is the existence of this market prior to that, and how it created a habit, and B, the fact that it's not just confined to smartphone as the traditional notion is. So again, if you can spotlight on what you meant in terms of the macro trend. Yeah.
See, rigid box, especially in the space of paperboard, has always been the go-to choice for any luxury or premium packaging.
Sure.
And it tends to grow. The general economic trend you will see is it grows with the economic growth of any country.
That's true. That's
So
true.
that is why it is picking up in India as well. And with its application to the mobile phone industry, because it's such a widespread industry,
Yep.
the consumption of rigid box has gone up.
Yep. Yeah. Significant. Significant. So I know of about what about 100 odd machines that have come in, both automatic and semi-automatic. Would that be a fair assessment?
I would say 100 would be a sort of a fair assessment for automatic machines.
Correct.
Semi-automatic machines would be much more.
I see. I see. All right. The other segment that we are seeing in addition to rigid box, where you're also equally strong, is paper bag. And I was fortunate enough to visit your stall at PAMEX, which was very busy. So congratulations on that.
you.
And I got two machine demos. So one is, if you can share with us what the machine that you were showcasing at PAMEX, what is the response? I know that particular machine was subsequently installed at a paper bag manufacturing unit in Daman.
Right.
And what is happening in that space? Because again, I got a fairly exhaustive demo and also got a good understanding of different types of handles and different types of support structures for a
Right.
paper bag.
See, what you saw at PAMEX was an automatic square bottom paper bag making machine with a flat handle.
Yep.
And in general, the demand for paper bags has been on the up.
Yep.
Especially because of the ban on the single-use plastic by governments across the world,
Yep.
not just India.
Sure.
And so these machines are automatic machines where you can put in a roll of paper and you get a finished bag out.
Sure. Sure.
And they are especially important now because with the increase in demand, like I said, it has increased exponentially because of the enforcement by the governments across.
Yep.
So there is a huge demand for paper bags worldwide, and with automatic machines you have the consistency in quality, and the quality of the bags is assured.
Sure.
Because these bags are supposed to handle anything from let's say from 2 kgs up to 20 kgs.
In terms of weight support.
In terms of the weight support.
Right, right. And again, what stood out for me at your stall at PAMEX was two types of handles. One was, I think, what was called the twisted handle, and one was the flat lay handle.
Right.
And I realized that the cost of capex varies a lot just depending on the choice. Why is that so, and why are handles so crucial for paper bags?
See, handles are of course very crucial for paper bags because that sort of defines the holding capacity of the bag.
Sure, sure.
How much can a handle support? That
Right.
defines how much you can carry in the bag.
Okay.
And in terms of options, these provide certain options to the clients how they want, because paper bag also plays an important role in how the brands want to project themselves.
Sure.
And how they want to design their bags. So
Sure.
having options like a D-cut or a twisted or a flat handle gives them some variations to work with.
Sure, sure. And would it be fair to say that for a sort of lay flat handle, you can put more units in a bag in terms of just when you're palletizing it and sending
Definitely,
it out?
that helps in the
export
transportation
consignment.
cost.
Yep,
Export
absolutely.
consignments or even within the country.
Domestic, yeah, right.
Because you save almost 20 to 30%
Right.
in terms of space.
Correct, correct. And again, I mean, you would be a better judge to, shed some light on this, is what's again transpiring in this paper bag. It's almost like what's happening in rigid box, that it seemed to be a fairly closely controlled industry, few very key players, maybe 6 years or 5 years ago, and now you see almost 250 to 500 odd new players who have arrived, and different kinds of nomenclature for what a paper bag is. So again, if you can give us a sense that who are these new players, and what is this sort of, why is it so busy? Why is the paper bag space so busy these days?
See, growth, as you mentioned, in these two sectors, rigid box and paper bag, are for different reasons.
Okay.
Rigid box, I would say, is more of an organic growth.
Correct.
Like I said earlier, with the increase in the aspirational value or the growth in the economy,
Sure.
the demand for the aspirational products increases.
Yep.
And so it is very natural that the demand for rigid box would increase.
Would grow, yeah. So
But-
what you're saying is that as household consumption among the middle class grows, you
Yes.
will find this also
Yes.
automatically as more purchase power for consumer commodities. Nice.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
right.
yeah, nice. And
But-
with paper bags?
With paper bag, I think it's more to do with the conscious effort towards to usage of sustainable products.
Sure, sure.
So, and this is a trend worldwide. So, because of that enforcement or because of that demand, you see an exponential rise in the demand for paper bags.
Yep, yep.
And India is benefiting from the fact that a lot of countries which were only importing from China earlier are now looking as India as an alternate partner for their supply chain.
For sourcing of paper bags.
For sourcing of paper bags and other products as well.
So typically we used to export to Middle East and maybe pockets of Europe. What would be the other territories India would ideally be looking at?
So India now there are certain large exporters who are exporting regularly to US.
Yep.
And US, I think worldwide is the biggest market for consumption, not just paper bags but any other product that you pick up.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah, because we have, I think in the news again, a couple of the Indian players who have thinking of setting up an offshore plant in the US. Yeah. But again, Nitin, what I want to understand from you is obviously the machine that you had displayed and doing the live demo at PAMEX was probably in the top end of the pyramid.
Right.
What advice would you have for anybody who's looking to enter the paper bag? Because a lot of the people who would be watching this would obviously be eyeing the paper bag segment. So two questions really: has it saturated? Number one, and number two is what should ideally a person looking to invest in a paper bag machine be looking at, and what kind of do's and don'ts would you sort of give that person?
See, I really don't think that this industry is saturated. I think we are just seeing the beginning of it.
Nice.
A lot of growth has come in, which has been primarily driven by export orders.
Right.
But the Indian domestic market is also picking up now.
That's true.
And it is in very nascent stages.
Yep, yep.
So we will definitely see a good demand. So anybody who's looking to enter into the space, I would advise them not to make any rash decisions. I would, just like you would look at any other business, you should look at it carefully. What is the demand like, and what kind of demand do you anticipate, or the kind of orders you can get, and then accordingly you should build capacity around it. A lot of customers, the mistake that I've seen that they make is that they would build capacity and then they would sort of go out into the
search
market.
for the yeah.
Yes, I really don't think it should. I think it should be the other way around.
Sure, sure. Got it. Got it. And again, there is a misconception that in paper bag there's very little innovation. I mean, it's been there. It's a technology which has been invented since a century ago. So, but again, some of the samples that you were showcasing at PAMEX were kind of interesting. So, one is the kind of square bottom, base that you had, and obviously what it entailed, and some of the other things that you were doing with tamper resistance, etc. So if you can spotlight that as well for us, that what are the new things that are happening in paper bag, and what should the new investor be vigilant about?
See, paper bag has a lot of variations possible, and depending on the segment that you're catering to, you have to decide what kind of product you want to offer. Because if I talk about paper bags which are made of higher GSM, like 150 GSM and above, those are generally made on a sheet fed kind of a machine. There you have an option to do a lot of value add. In terms of foiling, glitter, or the kind of printing that you want to do. And you can also play around a lot with the ropes and handles which are there. So, but these are generally for specific purpose or certain luxury items. But then there is the other segment, which is the roll fed segment, which is basically for mass consumption, which is what you see in most of the retail settings. Shopping bags or even food bags for deliveries.
Nice.
So in that segment, there is a shift. Especially if I talk about food deliveries and other, even e-commerce. There is a demand for tamper-proof bags, where the bags need to be sealed and they have to be delivered. And if there is any tampering, there should be an indication around it. So accordingly, the bags are being designed, and we have certain new developments there, like peel and seal, which will be on showcase in Drupa as well.
Nice, nice. So since you mentioned Drupa, you are obviously partnered with two technology leaders for both paper bag and rigid box. Who are they, and typically what is the the Nitin Garg method of identifying your partners, and when and how do you decide that these are good enough for the Indian market?
See, any partner that we work with,
Sure.
there are certain basic criteria that we look for.
Right.
First and foremost, the partner should be willing to invest in India market.
Okay.
Because India market is a fairly widespread market. So for anything to happen would take time.
Yep.
So generally the idea is to talk to the owners or to the founders
Of the principles.
of the principals to make sure that their thought process is aligned with us.
Sure. Sure.
And then, of course, the most important part is the manufacturing, the kind of manufacturing operation they are running.
Yep.
Because we need most of the products that we are offering. These are high performance, highly efficient machines.
Yep.
So selecting the right partner is, I would say, 60-70% of the job that we do.
Yep. And typically, what are the conversations about? I mean, usually what cost, durability, because Indian conditions are pretty tough, and third would be, I suppose, delivery of these machines on time, in time to India as per the requirement.
See, the basic principles remain same across the board.
That's true.
The durability, the consistency, the reliability of the machines, which
Sure.
comes from the manufacturing process.
Yep. Yep.
And second, as you mentioned, is the timelines, because timelines are getting shorter and shorter.
So timelines to manufacture a particular machine.
To manufacture a particular machine, to put it into operation,
You're right.
the deliveries,
Yeah. Yeah.
because our clients also, our customers also have pressure from their buyers.
Of course, of course. No, absolutely. And Nitin, I want to ask you, because I mean, you have come from pedigree which is also solid in terms of manufacturing. I mean, it's not as if you're a trader who's venturing forth. So that obviously sets you apart from a whole lot of other competitors. So when you are having these conversations, and this is a question more from the point of view of the Indian customer, what are the things you do look out for in terms of alignment in terms of manufacturing? That what are the things you do look out? Manufacturing efficiency, how are they sort of sourcing their parts? What kind of technology brain power do they have? How much ahead of the game are they with their product portfolio? If you can shed some light, because it would be interesting to look at how you see their factory operations.
See, to start with, I see NBG as of today as more of a solution provider.
Nice.
So I don't think of us as purely in terms of a manufacturer or a trader.
Okay.
So I see us as a solution provider. So whatever solution we can provide to fulfill the need of our customers, whether it is through the manufacturing space or the trading space,
Nice.
accordingly we are trying to align ourselves.
Got it.
And the kind of things that we look into while deciding on working with a particular partner, especially we are dealing a lot with companies from China at the moment.
Of course.
And these are companies which have really grown in the last 10 to 15 years. And what we've realized is that most of these good companies are dedicating themselves to a particular domain or a particular product, which allows them to innovate much more faster in that particular domain.
So a kind of super specialization.
Yes.
Nice, nice.
Because super specialization is now a requirement in every domain that you see.
That's true.
And not just in the printing or packaging space.
Of course, of course. And then what do? You obviously have, maybe a decade ago you sat with a list of about 8 to 10 of them, identified who you would, and then the conversation begins, and then you do a kind of factory audit, etc., customer feedback. How does that work?
We do all of that, and
Sure.
it is like you said, we did have sort of a wish list,
Okay.
but it has been a lot of trial and error
Of course.
at the same time.
Yeah, yeah.
So principles of any business, I think, are fairly simple. You deal with good people. That is what we, like when I said, we talk to the founders first to ensure that our thought process is aligned.
Right, right.
That we are thinking the same thing, we have the same values.
Sure.
So those are very important. And then comes the part where the manufacturing efficiencies, be it through operations or the quality of inputs that you're putting into the system, and the turnaround times.
Sure.
So all these come into play.
Correct. No, absolutely. No, the reason I'm sort of pestering you about this is because I know you, of course, as web offset, significant players in the web offset space, and obviously with a sort of enormous clout in that space, to certainly embark on this mad journey of, say, for example, rigid boxes, where, if I'm not mistaken, and correct me, is you have something like 35% of the market share right now. So you've obviously acquired that technology, not just acquired that, but also downloaded it in India and imparted that knowledge. So obviously there are two things going on,
Right.
the manufacturing capability part of it and downloading. So I'm trying to understand that how quickly does that happen, and you've taken the industry along, which is also equally important. One is, you do all this, but it doesn't have any trickle down in the Indian environment. You've been able to successfully do both things. So how have you managed that, and how easy has that? I'm just asking because hopefully that learning curve will also benefit others in the industry. Yeah.
No, definitely. I think the manufacturing background has helped us a lot.
Correct.
Because since we've been in this industry, in the printing and packaging industry now for almost 33 odd years,
Yeah.
so we know the market space well, we know
Sure.
the requirements of the customers well.
Right.
And being a manufacturer ourselves helps us to understand the pain points of the manufacturers and the customers at the same time.
Sure.
So that has really helped us in our understanding that what is our role what is the value that we are adding in the entire supply chain.
That's true.
So the product, in case of our trading segment, the product is being imported.
Sure.
But our value comes in where we add a lot of value in terms of application support or helping our clients to improve their efficiencies.
Absolutely.
So that is something that we are even at the moment working along with our clients.
Got it. No, for example, coming back to rigid box, I mean, it's a it looks like a simple machine, but it's got a lot of moving parts.
Yes.
There's obviously a lot of very precise engineering at play. So obviously it's complicated in that sense. And then of course the fact that it has to, perform in Indian environment and be delivering to some of these top end, brands.
Yes.
So again, to be able to sort of figure out these, what are these moving parts? How is the manufacturer, sourcing it or manufacturing it, etc. Trying to understand that process of it. Yeah.
No, absolutely. Like you said, rigid box is very different from a lot of other machines in the converting segment.
True.
Because it has about 4 odd sections which are coordinating with each other. And then again, depending on the end product, the tolerances could vary a lot. The tolerances which are required for production of an iPhone box are very different from what are required for a sweet box.
Yes.
So we have to adapt to those standards, and accordingly the models or the machines have been designed to cater to these industries.
Yes.
Where, for example, if I talk about box for a mobile phone, let's say, especially an iPhone, where the tolerance which is required for spotting, which is the process where you put the greyboard tray onto the liner, the tolerance is much closer as compared to any other general rigid box.
Sure. That's good. And again, coming back to this HBD machine that you have, will that again be the norm or de facto that the Indian industry will adapt? Because I mean, as you said, you do the top and bottom, at one go, and the speeds are also not compromised. Are we going at that level of premiumization and sort of automation within the segment?
I definitely see this being a trend.
Right.
Because this was sort of one of the constraints in the automatic rigid box machine space, and which has now been addressed by the manufacturers. And this will definitely help the converters to take a plunge faster into this space. Because earlier they would have to have 2 machines and they would have to have manpower accordingly to manage the show.
Got it.
Whereas now if they want to produce a telescopic box, which is your typical mobile phone box with the top and the bottom, so they are able to produce it on the same machine in one pass.
And are telescopic boxes also the norm for the other sectors, or it's only unique to smartphones?
No. Telescopic box are one of the most popular form of rigid boxes which are in use.
Correct.
Even if you look at a sweet box, that is also a telescopic box
with a minor change in tech specs. That's all.
But a lot of innovation is happening in the rigid box space. And rigid box space is a very creative space.
Correct.
So we have a lot new designs coming in.
Sure.
You have a book type box, or now one of the biggest constraints in rigid box was the space.
Yep.
The space which was required for transportation.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
now you have a collapsible box coming in which
Nice.
can fold almost like a folding carton. So
Wow.
and doesn't take too much of a space.
And doesn't compromise on the sort of structure of the
No,
box
it
subsequently.
doesn't.
Nice, nice.
In fact, it has been designed in such a way it looks really nice. Even the unboxing experience of a collapsible box is very unique.
Yep, absolutely. And no constraint on materials, because I know in manual people used to do a lot of very crazy things, but that was again 20 years ago. But are we able to do those kind of innovations as well with rigid box?
Yes, a lot of automation, technological innovation has happened.
Right.
And even the 5 years ago, probably you could not conceive a collapsible box being made on an automatic machine, but that has changed now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have a lot of automation available to produce different kind of boxes.
Right.
In fact, the Hongmeng machine,
Yep.
this is one of the things that they are now aggressively working on.
Sure.
Automation.
Yep. Yep.
How to automate different kinds of rigid box, how to automate the once the rigid box is made, how to automate the assembly of the box.
Nice.
So
Nice.
some of it you will also see at Drupa.
At Drupa, right. So you will be busy at what? 4 stalls at Drupa? Totally?
See, NBG, like I said, we are more of a solution provider.
Got it.
So we have solution for printing and converting.
Right.
Where we have our own standard Drupa, where
Of course.
we would be talking about our flexo printing machines. And then we are partnering with certain companies for the converting machines, which includes your rigid box, your paper bags, and also cups and bowls.
Yep, yep. So you ticked all the boxes. I mean, the 4 thriving industries in our, in our ecosystem right now: paper bags, rigid boxes, and I think paper cups was the only missing thing in a way. Yeah.
See, that is not how I look at it.
Right.
Our thought process was we are working with these clients, and we would like to serve our clients as much as possible efficiently.
Yep. Yeah.
And so a lot of it has been, I would say, sort of organic
nice,
growth.
Nice. But in paper cups, would it be fair to say you're a little late in the game, or you have something that you're offering which is slightly different from all the other players?
What we are offering is slightly different from what is prevalent at the moment.
Right.
So these machines offer higher efficiencies.
Okay.
And higher consistency.
Right.
And the kind of quality that the brands, I would say, like Starbucks or McDonald's, they require. So these machines are able to offer those on a consistent basis.
Sure. And again, how would this be working? I mean, you typically, now that you've identified your paper cup manufacturer, how would this work? You have identified X number of customers in India. We have what, I think around 5 major players who are in the paper, especially in the premium segment. Or again, is that segment also growing, and are we seeing?
Definitely that segment is growing.
Right.
As we were discussing earlier, India has benefited a lot on the world stage from the China Plus One policy.
Right.
This opportunity was not there, was not available to converters in India because the international players, especially in US, they were not looking at India as a viable option a few years ago. And they don't switch their supply chain that easily.
That's true.
Because this opportunity has opened up, so there's a lot of growth opportunity available to converters in India.
Right. So you're saying 2 things that will happen in the paper cup space. One is the domestic market for the premium Starbucks type brands, and the other is also exports to to some of the developed markets. Right. And where does India score? I mean, once the technology comes in, where would we score on cost? Would it be, or what, process efficiency? Where would we be scoring?
See, Indian converters, the leading converters are highly efficient.
Okay.
And I am sure that they will be able to build efficiencies into the system in a very short span of time.
Sure.
We have seen that happening in multiple segments.
Right.
So I have absolutely no doubt about that. The only question was the demand, which was not there earlier.
Right.
With the demand coming in, the domestic market doing good.
Right.
It is picking up pace
substantially.
With the export opportunities available.
Sure.
I think all the other things will fall into place
automatically. Yeah. So again, interesting. I mean, we'll come to the manufacturing, which is something I'm looking forward to having a conversation with you. But so you have NBG focusing on rigid box, you have NBG focusing on paper bags, and now, of course, a sort of new, product vertical as well, which is paper cups. So how does the team structure work? You have dedicated teams in each of these portfolios, doing the customer handling, the installation process, the technology transfer. If you can, again, for the benefit of our viewers, just share with us how the NBG structure is and how do you, how is the personnel strength in a way? Yeah.
No, definitely. Any segment that we go into, we
Sure.
have, especially for the after sales part,
Yep.
we have a dedicated team because
course.
these are specialized machines and they require deep technical know-how.
Yep.
And unless we build that, I'm not sure how much value can we add to the system.
True.
So that is one of our core functions.
Yeah.
So we do have a dedicated team available
For each portfolio.
flexo, rigid
Yep.
box,
Yep.
paper bags or cups and bowls.
Right. So in terms of after sales, typically what does it entail? I mean, because a lot of people believe that it's mainly tech support, to some extent installation, which I think by and large India is now, our industry has cracked it. But one of the feedback that we get from a lot of customers is applications. I mean, that is the, the hunger, the thirst. And if, say, maybe their counterparts in Europe or the US will have R&D, dedicated design teams, etc., here they sort of lean very heavily on somebody like you. So in the application front, are you in a position to share new developments, some work in material science, something with them which you can keep adding to their customer portfolio?
See, definitely application is a big part of it. It depends on the segment. Like
Right.
rigid box is a highly application oriented segment.
That's true.
So it requires a lot of hand holding from the time of installation till the customers are self-sufficient.
Yep.
Whereas a product like paper bag has a different requirement in terms that we need to, because the demand has increased exponentially in a short span of time.
Right.
So we've had to sort of work with that, where we've helping our clients to improve their efficiencies.
Sure.
And we are also building our systems internally where we can do this job much better in the times to come.
Right. No, like paper cups, I know you're still taking baby steps in that. A lot is happening in terms of coatings, for instance, and of course biodegradability, especially with beverages and so on.
Right.
So is there again something, like that know-how transfer that you're passing, would have to pass on, etc., and then, re-plug yourself into the system literally to share knowledge with your customers?
Absolutely, that is something that we are actively working on,
Sure,
because
sure.
that is a huge requirement from the paper cup industry at the moment. For specialized coatings, for biodegradable coatings. And we have solutions in that space. We are working with certain clients for coatings as well. Even our manufacturing division, we have delivered certain combination presses with flexo and gravure, which do inline printing and coating at the same time.
Nice. Nice. So coming to NBG, the manufacturer, I know that you've been just, again, let me get the dates right, 3.5 decades in the industry. You've joined 2002? 2003. Okay,
yes,
all right.
Right.
So it's what, 22 years for you, long innings actually. So do you remember, I mean, because obviously it's a huge journey, 2002 to 2024, the NBG 1, if we can call that, and NBG 2.0, if we can call this big journey. Do you remember your early days in 2003 at NBG? Because I think in those days you were in a way, the kings of web offset manufacturing.
See, the early days, of course, were, I would say, tough. It involved a lot of firefighting. But as I continued my journey in the business, I was able to identify a lot of lacunas and key areas that we needed to work upon. And fortunately, we've been able to sort of address those along the journey. And NBG as a company has grown a lot in terms of our understanding of our clients, the requirements of our clients. I think we have a fairly much better understanding of what we understood the requirements of our clients maybe 20 years ago.
Sure. So when you say tough, what do you mean? I mean, inefficiencies in the system, license Raj, or just, you know, systems not working, processes being, you know, not delivering on time?
It's been, I think, multiple things.
Okay.
Even the introduction of GST, I think, has helped a lot, because at that time
Yep.
there were a lot of other departments, and that was there was a lot of chaos around that.
Sure,
So
sure.
the general macro environment of the company, I think, of the country, sorry, has improved a lot.
Substantially, yeah.
Substantially. That has also helped, and even we as a company, we had a lot of inefficiencies within our system.
Sure.
But I think that is that goes along with the journey of any company.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we've been able to move in the right direction.
Sure.
We've taken the right decisions at the right time, made the right investments.
Correct, correct. I remember 2007, I think both of us were babies at that time. I visited your Faridabad unit, if
Right.
I'm not mistaken,
Right.
and the CNC machine had just sort of arrived.
Yes.
Would it be fair to say, A, that was a big turning point in terms of NBG's journey, and also the way, you know, Indian web offset manufacturers looked at the final product in a way? Would that be a fair sort of encapsulation of that investment?
Definitely, that was sort of a turning point for us, because what that did for us was that allowed us to produce good quality machines consistently.
Sure, sure.
Prior to that, there was a lot of misfires also. But with introduction of automation into the system, we were able to produce good quality machines on a consistent basis.
Sure, sure.
And that sort of had a domino effect in the other aspects of the business as well.
Right.
Where we tried to bring in consistency wherever possible.
Yeah.
Whether it in terms of actual manufacturing or our offering as a service.
Yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. And I know, Nitin, that you are a bit sort of humble about your own contribution as an organization to the web offset, but that again was a fairly solid innings that you all played, right? I mean, at the peak of your, if you look at the balance sheet of NBG, it was a fairly significant contribution to the company's overall growth, correct? Would that be again right to say that in terms of what NBG did for the newspaper industry and to a large extent some of the book printers in India, your contribution has been quite immense, right?
No, definitely. I think working in the web offset space gave us a very good and a clear understanding, not just of the web offset industry, but of the engineering process in general.
That's true.
And the tolerances which are required in our industry, in the printing industry, I think are probably only next to the aerospace industry.
That's true.
The tolerances are maybe even closer than what is required in automotives or other industries.
Yeah.
So it has helped us to gain understanding of the engineering process in general.
Yeah. And why do you think has our industry been underestimated? I mean, you are a student of, you're a business student, you've got, I think, 2 degrees under your belt. So why is it that the other industries are always highlighted? I'm not saying that they should be, downgraded, but why is it that our industry tends to be always, given a lower priority in this department? Is there any sort of historical reason for this, or we don't boast adequately?
No, I don't think so. I think it's probably just the size of the industry.
Size of the industry.
But nonetheless, I think I would not say that printing industry is sort of overlooked.
Right.
But yeah, the kind of tolerances that we are working with, I think that is not given the due respect, or I don't know what to call it.
Right.
But because we are working with very close tolerances.
That's true.
And the kind of engineering that we are doing is very precision engineering.
Absolutely. No, and the fact that, I mean, we haven't, in spite of all the odds that Indian newspapers are produced under and manufactured, we haven't heard of, I mean, to a large extent, no newspaper having a breakdown, newspaper press having a breakdown, I mean, come flood, come earthquake, come riot, come whatever, electricity failure, newspaper presses have delivered, not just in India, but, other corners of the world, and against all odds, untrained operators, etc. So there must be something that you guys have been doing, correctly with your manufacturing, otherwise those machines won't be delivering.
I think there, of course, the quality, the precision of the machine helps.
True.
It brings consistency, it brings predictability
to
the operations. But I think there I would give a lot of credit to the newspaper publishers.
Of course.
Because whatever technological development has happened in the newspaper space, but those guys have been ensuring consistent delivery for the last many decades.
That's true. Yeah.
So
So when did you make your mind up, because this big shift, right? I mean, it's like one technology regime, and from that regime you have shifted to flexo. So when did the idea start brewing at NBG, and then B, crystallization? Obviously, it's many blueprints, many diagrams, many sleepless nights, I suppose, right?
See, even when the day I joined the business, that question mark was looming, that what is going to happen in
What next?
What next? Because that question was there worldwide.
Sure, of course.
What is going to happen next in the newspaper industry? So that question was always there in my mind, and finally, I think somewhere in 2011 or 12, we decided to add packaging to our portfolio.
Yep.
And that is when we started dealing in certain machines for folding cartons. And
Yeah.
from,
Yes.
from there, it sort of took off.
Yeah. Yeah. And the flexo, I mean, when did that sort of idea
See,
get conceptualized? Sorry.
Yes, sir. Flexo we introduced somewhere in 2016
Oh, okay.
in our manufacturing segment.
Yeah.
And it took us a couple of years to gain a foothold in that industry. And in fact, since 2016, now it took some time, but now we have developed a wide range from narrow to wide web roll-fed flexo presses,
Yep.
which are used for anything from labels to packaging print.
Sure, sure. No, and significant. So again, if you can just talk us through those early days. I mean, what was it that you gained in the process? Because 2-3 things were happening. One is that the narrow web flexo space in India was evolving.
Yes.
I think what the sort of knowledge quotient in our industry was, if you could say X, it had become maybe 10x by the
Right.
time you guys were on the scene.
Right.
And then third, of course, what you did with the machines in terms of the actual manufacturing and engineering. So if you can just share your journey, because 2 things were happening simultaneously.
Right.
Yeah.
No, like you said, 2 things were happening simultaneously, and it was a difficult transition for
Yeah,
us.
yeah.
Because as far as I can remember, NBG was doing only one product for almost 25 to 30 odd years.
That's true.
So for us, it was a challenge to learn the technology. Flexo was sort of a new technology for
Right.
us. The only common point was that we were dealing in a roll-fed machine.
Right.
So we knew how to handle
Yeah.
substrate in a roll format.
Yeah.
So, but other than that, everything was new to us.
Sure.
And I think there the good part was we were able to partner with some leading clients who were able to help us with the know-how on the application side of the business.
Sure.
Because
sure.
engineering, the designing we could understand, but I think for printing machine, the application part is an equally important part.
Right.
Which we were fortunate enough to work with some very clients who are actively engaged in their business, and they are able to understand, they know the application part really well.
Nice.
And we were able to learn it from them.
Right. So that became a kind of starting point, and then you work backwards.
Yes,
really.
right.
So what would be the things that you, I mean, what are the boxes that you would say you tick, like say analogs, your die cuts? What are the things that were immediately that these are problem areas which you need to find solutions for? Because they are problems slightly different from the web offset space, right?
Right.
So which would be the typical sort of products or the parts within the machine that you were identifying as immediate problem areas that you had to identify? I mean, you had to overcome. So.
See, first, like I said, for us, the biggest challenge was to understand the technology and the application of it. So that was a journey in itself.
Yeah.
And as we did that, we were, like I said, we were able to work with very
Important
knowledgeable
thing,
clients who knew the requirement well. And they were able to sort of point us in the right direction, whether it was in terms of curing, because you now see UV LEDs coming in, which are bringing in a lot of efficiency into the system. And then on the mechanical side, one of the key requirements was the fast changeover.
Yes,
because
absolutely.
clients wanted machines where they could do quick changeovers for shorter runs or for customizations. So
and a lot more complex jobs. No?
Yes,
I mean,
and a lot more complex jobs as well.
So
there, for complex jobs especially, I think a lot of credit goes to the pre-press as well.
Yes, of course, yeah, because suddenly you found that plate making suddenly became much simpler. The times became much shorter.
Right.
What you could, load onto your machines also became. So with that, I'll just sort of quickly come to this machine which I saw recently at a factory in Greater Noida. It's your 10 color 430 flexo label press. And so two things. One was I found the machine extraordinary because I think it was running at, again, correct me if I'm wrong, 440 ppm approximately, and it could go up to 600 if I'm not mistaken. But also what you all have done in terms of, I think it was again you and the person where the machine is, where both of you have worked in tandem and created this sort of thing. So very interesting project, but also it seemed like a very challenging project because you have in a way reinvented the wheel for flexo machines. Would it be fair to say that?
I would not say we have reinvented the wheels, but yes, we were able to capture the demand, the requirement fairly well.
Right.
The company that you're talking about is Kumar Labels.
Correct, correct.
And Mr. Anuj
Anuj
Bhargav,
Bhargav, yeah.
he was very actively engaged in the design stages,
Yep, yep.
especially the nuances that were required
Yep.
for that press.
Yep.
So he was able to guide us really well in that direction.
Correct, correct. Because one thing that struck me is that, you know, we have all these machines which are, you know, we use all these very fancy words, cutting edge, state of the art, you know, etc., and but they just seem to have a whole lot of bells and whistles which sometimes not required. So it seems that both of you seem to have gone back to the, you know, basic blueprint and looked at it and said that, do we need so many servo motors? Do we need, you know, that kind of relook at the whole thing?
Yes.
And I suppose anyone who's a, you know, technology geek within the industry would call both of you fools, but obviously you'll have proved them not wrong, but you've made the machine work, which is ultimately the testimony. So that for me was very interesting, that do we really need that degree of sophistication? And have we over-engineered these machines, which somewhere you seem to have addressed that problem? So yeah. So if you can, yeah.
No, I think you very rightly pointed out. Again, I would give a lot of credit in this
To Anuj, yeah.
To Anuj,
Yeah.
because he was very clear with his vision, what he wanted to do, and we went back to the drawing board, and we realized that the concept that we were discussing was workable. And like you said, not so much of automation was required for majority. I would say 90% of the jobs did not require as much automation.
Yeah, yeah.
Because a lot of clients, they do the mistake where they jump in and they pick up a machine what anybody else is buying without realizing what the actual demand is or what is it that they actually want to do with the machine.
True.
So
True.
In this case, the good thing was that they were very clear with their requirement, what is it that they wanted to do.
Yeah.
And we were able to then design the machine accordingly and deliver. And after that, we have shown that machine to certain clients, and they have been surprised that okay, that what they are typically running on a European machine, a fully automated machine with twin servos and things like that. You are able to produce on a machine with a very relatively a basic configuration.
Yeah, yeah.
So engineering is all about optimum.
Yes, yeah.
I think what is required, it should not be over-engineered, it should not be under-engineered.
Right.
Engineering is all about delivering optimum performance.
True. Well said. Well said. And sometimes we, I think, engineer for the sake of engineering. I mean, or rather, we over-engineer for the sake of it. You know. I mean, how do you sort of? I mean, is there like a warning signal for you? I mean, because sometimes I find with a lot of people, and we do. I mean, like you meet a lot of printers, converters, etc. I sometimes find they're working for the banks more than they're working for themselves.
Right,
you know.
right.
Is that a danger in our kind of an environment where, as you say, they see that the person next door has invested in this, you know, fully bells and whistles kind of machine, and then they follow in the same footstep? Would that be a danger?
That would be a huge red flag.
Right.
Unfortunately, I see a lot of that happening with a lot of, especially new entrants into the business.
Sure, sure.
Because people would see just the one bit of it that, okay, certain printer or a certain converter is using a certain machine.
Yeah.
Without looking at the overall business plan,
Yeah.
they just pick up one bit of it and then they go with it.
Yeah.
So I think that is the biggest mistake any company can do.
Correct.
Because they need to look at the overall picture. They need to look at the overall numbers.
Yep.
The numbers need to make sense at every level, whether it is the return on investment or whether it is the capex.
Yep.
So the numbers need to be looked at carefully before making any decision.
True. True. So how do, because I know you wear these multiple hats, and one of your hat is this sort of business school hat. Do you also help, you know, your customers to some extent, or rather open their eyes to this capex versus opex? Because that is the big conundrum in our industry, you know, that you're obviously bleeding, and then there are other aspects to it, efficiency of the machine, the carbon footprint, the wastage portion, what is the turnaround time in terms of make ready, etc. How do you sort of correlate this for them on a on a spreadsheet, because people ultimately understand that? Yeah.
See, in our case, a lot of our clients tend to be large clients.
Yeah.
So they do their due
Homework,
diligence.
yeah.
But in certain cases, I've seen that wherever required, I do try and engage with my clients to make sure that they're looking at the overall picture and not just jumping into it. There are a lot of clients who have come to us with a requirement of an automatic rigid box machine, and I have to advise them against it.
Okay.
Because that did not make business
sense. Okay.
So either we have offered them a solution like a semi-automatic, or told them not to look at the business altogether. Especially if I talk about the business for mobile phones.
Yeah.
It is not an easy business to get in.
Yes.
Because the demands are such, the buyers, which are generally large mobile phone companies, they require a lot of scale and efficiencies.
Sure.
So it's not that easy to build.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we have never made a sale just for the sake of it.
True. And this machine's been doing quite well. I mean, it's Anuj, as you mentioned, has sort of very specialized requirements for the Alcobev smart labels. Then he has this SRTF, which is the single release with two phase stocks, etc. Right. How much of typically time do you take on a beta site? Is because you're doing a lot of work in Flexo. How much of time do you take on your beta sites, and what are the kind of typical test trials that you've been going through with, especially in Flexo, in view of just the multiple number of substrates that we have, especially if you look at PE and I mean just the entire gamut of materials that are there. How much of time are you spending on that aspect of it?
See, it really depends on the project.
Yep.
There are certain clients who have very clear requirement. They are clear that okay, they are working with paper of a certain GSM of a certain kind.
Yeah.
So those projects are pretty straightforward.
Sure.
Then there are certain projects where clients come to us that they want to do anything from aluminum films to aluminum foils to films to paper.
Sure.
Which we advise against. This is something that we were discussing earlier.
Sure.
We try and engage with our clients in a detailed discussion.
Yep.
So that they have some clarity around what they want to do.
Right.
Because especially a narrow wave flexo press, even though theoretically it can handle multiple substrates, but there are certain points which need to be considered, and it is good to have a clear understanding of the at least the dominant requirement before deciding on the kind of press that you want to buy.
Sure. So like horses for courses kind of thing. Right. That's good. You have presence now in 30 odd states, 30 odd nation states rather, I should clarify. Right. So two things really, how do you ensure your products? One is of course the Indian market, which is a tough market, and obviously you've ensured your standards are met over here. What are you doing about the NBG brand in some of these other nation states? How do you ensure that your outreach is as significant, as powerful, and what's your success rate in some of these nation states?
See, the business principles or the working methods remain same.
Sure.
Across the world.
Okay.
The only thing is how you have to align a certain function.
Yep.
Like if we are exporting, we need to make sure that the product is right, and especially in case of exports, we cannot take too many chances. So we cannot play around with the supply chain a lot. So we generally go with whatever is proven. And second is that we need to then ourselves identify a local partner, as we are doing for our imported machines. So we try and identify partners who can bring in technical support on the ground. And then our team also travels, and with the consistency in the manufacturing process.
Sure.
The good thing which has happened in the last 10 to 20 years in China and India, and I mean these are the two major developing nations which are producing a lot of machinery. The quality of the machines is now fairly consistent and reliable.
Right.
So the major part that needs to be handled is the after sales support. So that is where our local channel partners come in, And that is why we try and work with companies which have an engineering background or
in addition to business sort of.
Right.
Yeah, got it, got it. And in terms of scalability, where do you see NBG going? I mean, supposing we are having this conversation in maybe 10 years, 15 years from now, where are you seeing the sort of, outreach that NBG will have, and what kind of sort of portfolio would you be, in a way, dominating the world market here?
See, I clearly see NBG being a dominant player in the packaging sector.
Yep, yep, nice.
And I think that would include both paperboard and flexibles.
Okay, okay, nice, nice. And again, this is something from one of the sort of veterans in the industry who said very long ago that India definitely needs about 15 to 20 of these manufacturing in our space, printing packaging, who are about 1,000 crores. And it won't just, it shouldn't just be one company or two companies, but we need maybe 25 or 50 of these companies so that then we are taken seriously globally. I mean, this is the point I think you were also making, which, China plus one kind of thing. So A, do you think that is an achievable, attainable thing in, view of whatever is happening with the macroeconomics and the GDP and the trickle down in our, industry as well? And B, of course, you've been traveling, I think what you told me, 40 countries you've been.
Right. That's about
right, right. So, I mean, in sense, you obviously get a sense of what is happening on the granular level in some of these places. So, what is the sense that you are getting? A, do you think this is attainable, that, there'll be maybe 50 NBGs at 1,000 crore, being able to do manufacturing at that scale with all the standards in place, and B, the acceptance for these Indian products in these global markets?
Absolutely, I think I see that happening because the general environment is such that we now have an opportunity where we can really grow.
Sure.
And with India, the home market also picking up steam.
Right.
I see that happening a lot faster.
Right.
What I understand is the companies from China were able to do that because they had a strong home market.
That's true.
Which I see happening for India over the next 1 to 2 decades.
Sure, sure.
So I think that will really help us to scale up, bring in more efficiencies, bring in more automation into our manufacturing process.
Sure.
And the good thing is, worldwide I see fairly good acceptability for India as a country.
Okay.
Which is also helping us.
Right, right. Got it. But I think what also benefited China is a sort of pro-industry policy. I mean, a pro-printing, packaging, paper industry policy by their government. That definitely helped. The question for you, Nitin, is, I mean, what is NBG doing? I mean, I know I visited the factory, I think, in 2007, and then when the flexo line was unveiled at that time. So, what is, because I know you have two major manufacturing sites. So, again, for our viewers, if you can share what's happening with NBG on the manufacturing front, and what new and what more can we expect?
See, in fact, we have a new dedicated facility coming up in Faridabad.
Okay.
For manufacturing and assembly of flexo printing machines.
Nice.
And I think we should be, that facility should be in operation hopefully by the end of this month itself.
Okay.
So
on the eve of Drupa. How
yes.
nice. Nice. That's a good announcement to make as well.
Right.
So how will it work for NBG in terms of your workflow of all the various sites that you have?
See, this the new additional space, the new facility will allow us to focus a lot more on product development, on the R&D, on improving our systems, efficiencies, and hopefully bringing in new products to the market much faster.
Sure. Nice.
Because we have made a conscious effort. I think NBG as a company, we did not launch any new machine.
Okay.
I mean, we did made some incremental improvements in the web offset space, but those were like most of them were incremental improvements.
Yep.
But in the last 8 to 10 years, we have launched a narrow web flexo press.
Yes.
We've launched a wide web flexo press, and then we've also launched some other converting solutions like sheeters and slitter rewinders. But predominantly in flexo, we've covered the entire range where we have the narrow web for the labels, and then we have the wide web for the packaging print for applications like paper bags, cups. Then we have the super wide format where we have the repeat of up to 1.9 meters for corrugation preprint.
Yep.
So a lot of these developments have taken place in the last 6 to 8 years time.
Yep. Yep. No, absolutely.
And I see that as a common trend. We would be innovating a lot more in the years to come.
But this would also be on the product, something in sort of line of what happened with Starflex. Starflex, of course, as you said, you partnered with a very solid technology player himself in the market. But
Yes.
would you be also doing a lot of that stuff in your own workshops, etc., with any of the product lines?
I'm sorry.
With Starflex, I mean, with Anuj's product, I mean, the
Yes.
10 color machine, you did that where you all both had a, sort of common platform where you all met and
No,
collaborated.
we've worked in a similar fashion for the other products
Products
also.
as well,
The other
yeah.
products which I mentioned, like
Sure.
start like the super wide format.
Super wide format.
1.6 meters wide, 1.9 meters repeat.
Right.
We worked with the client in Sonipat and they worked very closely with us. It was a application for corrugation preprint.
Nice.
So even though it's a flexo, it's a different segment altogether. It's a completely different segment and with completely different set of requirements.
Sure. So what did you do? I mean, in terms of yep.
This was an entirely new press, which had an entirely different structure. It was a different design altogether.
Nice.
So in flexo, in wide format flexo, generally the repeat lines tend to go up to 1.2, 1.3 meters.
Yep.
But in this case, we were able to offer repeat of up to 1.9 meters, which is a fairly standard requirement in the corrugation industry.
Correct.
For the corrugation preprint.
Yes. That's interesting. That's interesting. But you'll now be able to do repeatability? I mean, more lines like this? Would
Yes,
that,
definitely. There's a huge amount of interest. Clients are reaching out to us for this application for corrugation preprint, and we are working on some very serious cases. And
yeah, nice, nice. And the other thing which is very interesting is what you're doing with people strength. I mean, we've spoken, I think, at length about what the business profile of our industry is, what kind of portfolios NBG is handling, also technology advancements and such. But that's again something, I mean, a lot of, we do have a, you can say a shortage of technical skill, and you're following a fairly interesting methodology at your factories. If you can share with us what you're doing and why you're doing this.
see, the reason behind it is fairly simple.
Sure.
As I mentioned, we want to work with good people, be it our customers, clients, or our employees, or colleagues. So what we are trying to do is, for example, for the next set of engineers for our flexo division, we have trained them in-house.
Nice.
And now we are regularly investing in our training process.
Okay.
Where we are picking up people from different institutes.
So ITI and diplomas and so on.
Holders,
nice. And these are, just to get it right, these are operators who are already been working with you for the last 5 or 10 years. Yeah.
These are either operators or we are bringing in fresh people.
Right.
But the basic idea is to screen for people who we feel can work in a focused manner.
Sure.
With the company on a long-term basis.
Nice.
And who are focused on their work.
Yep. Yep. Nice. And how do you do these training modules? I mean, is it sort of Hindi, English combination and short-term courses? Yeah.
We are basically providing them on-ground training where they work across different departments of the company.
Sure.
Starting from quality control to assemblies to manufacturing, to even operating the machinery for manufacturing.
Sure. Sure.
So we train them across different domains so that they have a fairly good understanding of the entire process.
Sure.
And then depending on our requirement and their skill and their interest, we are trying to align them with different departments.
Sure, sure. Nice. Just to sort of conclude, I know you're traveling to Drupa, so is your team. If you can just share with us how many from NBG will be traveling to Drupa, and where can we sort of catch hold of you and your team and get demos of some of these technologies that you've been so kind to share with us. Yeah.
NBG, we as a company have our own stand there at Drupa as well in Hall 12. A lot of our partners
are also
in Hall 12.
That's great.
So I think we should be able to manage that well.
Fair enough.
And for our manufacturing portfolio, there would be a lot of focus on our flexo printing machines. On the converting side, we have Hongming for the rigid box, and then we have Zono for the roll-fed paper bag
Yep.
machines.
Yep.
And then we'll also be meeting with our clients for cups and bowls
Yep.
and certain new segments, other
Yep.
announcements which will be there hopefully at Drupa.
Lots on your plate,
Yes.
Nitin. So before you go away, I mean, I know we've covered a lot of this, but I'm going to do this as a kind of a final wrap up instead of doing a wrap up on my own. Just a few questions to wrap up the conversation we've had so far. What is the topmost priority among your customers these days? What are the conversations you're hearing? Is it plant construction, the actual machine that you sell to them? Smooth, timely operations? Is it R&D with applications, or is it green? So you have 4 options. Yeah.
Timely options, timely operations and R&D.
R&D and applications. Yeah. The second thing is about sustainability, because I mean we are hearing a lot about that from brands. So brands, as you're aware, and government is pushing for sustainability. What does it mean for our industry? And as NBG, what do you feel? Lower carbon footprints, efficient recycling, biodegradable materials, or green certifications only?
All of the above.
All of the above, okay. And then your pet subject, China plus one philosophy. Is it working? Is it not? The 4 options for you, it is working. It's work in progress. It's working, but it's worked for Mexico, Vietnam, and Poland. And 4th, systems on ground in India are not delivering as yet.
It has definitely worked for India and it will continue to grow.
It will continue to grow.
Yes.
Okay, great. And cash is king, because this is again something I think a lot of your customers keep saying to us as well. So the options are keep 6 months cash on hand, keep 12 months cash on hand, have pockets, have deep pockets, have very deep pockets. And the 4th option, which is remember, banks are there to sell, never think banks are your friend.
I slightly differ on that. I think we have personally benefited a lot by borrowing from banks. It
Okay.
has helped us to grow.
Right.
I think it is how you manage your cash flow, how you manage your funds.
Sure.
That plays a lot of, that is the key on, so it has definitely helped us.
Right.
And I would say have at least 6 months of cash reserves with you.
That's true.
And
I mean, I think
having-
COVID taught us that. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes. Before COVID, probably nobody took it so seriously.
So seriously, yeah.
But COVID definitely did teach us that, and I think the debt is how you look at it, how you manage it.
That's true.
That's an important.
But that's interesting what you say about banks and that your approach. So what kind of a monetary approach should typical? I mean, most of our players are in the SME, MSME space. What kind of a monetary approach do you think they should have? I mean, ideally, how should they be looking at the problem?
See, the basic idea is they should be clear why are they taking debt. The reason for taking on debt should be very clear.
Sure.
If it is for growth, I don't see any problem. And then the second aspect is they have to look whether they can serve that debt.
Sure.
And over how much period can they serve that debt.
Yep.
So these are the questions, these are the few basic
Fundamental questions.
fundamentals that they
Yep.
need to ask, and
Sure.
there shouldn't be any problem.
Sure. And finally, the one big question for 2024, currency fluctuations, is that the thing to look out for? Bad debts, legal trials, black swan events as they are happening, the Israel-Gaza war, Ukraine, COVID, Red Sea crisis, or government notifications which come out of the blue and then you're caught napping?
I don't worry about any of these.
None of
because they are beyond our control.
Sure.
I think what we can control is how efficiently we run our system.
Right.
And how efficiently we are able to deliver our services.
Right.
So those are the things we look at. The
Sure.
macro things which you just talked about, which are beyond our control, I don't worry about them too
That's
much.
it. Great. Excellent. So on that note, thank you very much, Nitin, for doing this. Genuinely appreciate it. I know you had to catch a really early morning flight and come to Delhi. I come from Delhi to Mumbai. So thank you for doing that. And all the best for Drupa and all the 101 plans that you shared with me prior to this conversation. I hope at least 10% of those plans get fructified. So thank you, and all the best to NBG and you, of course, for your future goals. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.